Okay, Rabbi, welcome. We're going to talk about tonight one of the most important mitzvot in the Torah, which is Mezuzah, right? Where does it say in the Torah that we have to put mezuzot in our house? It says in the Kriyat Shema, when we say Kriyat Shema, Uchtavtam al mezuzot be'techa u'bish'arecha. We say this every day when we put on our tefillin. We say Kriyat Shema, right? And also we say it at night before we go to sleep. Hopefully we do say it. So it says, right, you should write them on the mezuzot of your house and on your gates. This is the translation of the pasuk. So what does that mean? If you, by the way, this is one of the most important, one of the most clear cases where the written Torah is not really enough to understand what you must do. The oral Torah, if you didn't have the oral Torah, how would you know what this means, this verse? It says, Uchtavtam al mezuzot betecha u'bish'arecha. It says, write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. First of all, you wouldn't know what to write. What are you talking about? What do you want me to write over there? Which part of the Torah do you want me to write? Right? And how do I have to put it over there? All these things, all these details. Nobody knows this. Without the oral Torah, the Talmud, you wouldn't know what to do. Right? So that's the way it is, by the way. Same thing with tefillin. Right? What does it say about tefillin? It just tells you, right? Tie it on your arm and tie it on your head, between your eyes. You don't know what to tie, what to put there. You don't know nothing about all that. So if we didn't have the oral Torah, we wouldn't know how to do tefillin. All these things that we have, all these rules about what to put in there, how it has to be put, how it has to be sewed up, how it has to be placed, how it has to be shaped. All these things are the oral Torah. You understand? So if we didn't have the oral Torah, the written Torah is not understood. Everybody can interpret their own way. Like in Congress. You know how it is, right? In those hearings, one says like this, one says like that. One says he's guilty, one says it's hearsay, one says it's hearsay, right? Everyone says something else, right? Puree, whatever it is, right? Everyone's got their own opinion. But in the Torah, it's not like that. We have a very clear tradition about how to do these things. So where does it come from? From the oral Torah, right? So anyway, we are commanded in the Torah to write them like this. What do we have to write? So says, right, the Gemara, the Talmud. Where is the Talmud about Mezuzah? Where is this written? Which Talmud? It's Masechet Menachot, over there, in that area, in that Masechet. It says over there that a person has to write 2 paragraphs in the Mezuzah. Which 2 paragraphs does he have to write? Shema Yisrael v'Hayeh b'Shamua. These 2 paragraphs you have to write. Those are paragraphs you have to write in the Mezuzah. If you don't write those 2 paragraphs, you write something else. No good, right? You don't have a choice by that. Write this, don't write that. You understand? That's the way it is. Yeah. So a person has to know, first of all, what to write. Number 1. Okay, that's what you have to write. So there's also rules about how to write the Mezuzah, right? A person has to know how to write that. We're not going to get into that now. It's too technical for us. We're not sofrim over here, right? We're not scribes. So we're not going to get into this issue of how to write the Mezuzah. Maybe some other day when you guys become big chachamim, then we'll talk about these things, right? Whatever. When I become big chacham, we'll talk about these things, right? Whatever it is. So meanwhile, we'll skip over that issue, right? We'll leave that to the sofrim, to the scribes. But now there's a lot of issues involved here, right? Which is what? Okay, it says put them on your doorposts, but where? Which side? Where? On the bottom? On the top? Here, there, right? You could do it like many different ways. So how do we know all these things, right? What has to be done? How has to be done? Number 1, first of all, since we're not really experts so much how to write the Mezuzah, that's not really our expertise, right? This is the scribes know how to do these things. We're not so expert in these things. So therefore, what does a person have to do in order to ensure that his Mezuzah is kosher? He has to buy that from somebody who's expert in these laws about Mezuzah. So don't go just to your neighborhood, dealer, somebody, some Joe Schmo. Oh yeah, give me some Mezuzah. Who are you buying from Mezuzah? This guy. How do you know he's kosher? How do you know what? What do you know? What do you know about him? Right?
Main Street.
Yeah, Main Street, whatever is Main Street or that street or Park Avenue, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, wherever you are, or Broadway, right? Doesn't make any difference. You have to go. The halakha says you have to go to a person who's expert in these things. So what does that mean? You should buy them either from a sofer or somebody who bought it from a sofer. He can testify. He can attest that he bought it from a sofer, somebody who's very reliable, somebody like this, somebody who's expert. Because if you don't buy from an expert, you know what the rule is? You have to check them. Because you don't know what you got. You don't know what you got. You don't know what kind of material you got there. You know, right? So therefore, since a person doesn't know what he got, he should go to somebody who can. He knows what he's giving him. Somebody who's expert. You know, that's the first thing. And don't think, it has to do, with the size of his beard. You know, it's a big beard. You know, whatever. Oh, he must be expert. You know, this guy has nothing to do with the beard. Has to do with his knowledge, right? What he has in his head. That's what we're worried about. And what does he have in his heart also, right? Because he has to be God-fearing person. Heart and head. We don't really care so much about his beard, how big it is, or how long his, he has antennas coming out over here, He has he gets Wi-Fi over there, right? And the antennas, whatever it is, and all these things. Or he has, some tzitzit, coming with some blue color, all kinds of stuff like this. Right. Blue and white and red, red, white, and blue. All kinds of things like this. We don't care about that. That's not the issue. The issue has to be that he has to be a person who's expert and God-fearing. That's the idea. If he is, so then you're allowed to. Otherwise, if you didn't buy from an expert person who's God-fearing, what do? You have to check the mezuzot. Go take them to a scribe, a sofer, and have them check it. Check it out. It takes them for somebody who's good, a few minutes to check each one. They'll check everything, nice, whatever. They know how to identify everything. So they will see what that really is, that mezuzah. You should know, by the way, that there are some people now who are writing mezuzot who are not even Jewish. They say there's even Arabs, who are writing mezuzot now. Can you imagine, to make money in Israel? They know how to write Hebrew. They learn some, how to calligraphy, and they write mezuzot. Can you imagine? You could be buying mezuzot. They'll tell you, oh yeah, it's from Israel. Yeah, Israel, but it was written by an Arab. Thank you very much. Right? It could be something like that as well. So therefore, a person has to avoid all these pitfalls. A mezuzah has to be written by somebody who himself is a Jew, God-fearing Jew as well. You know what I mean? So it cannot be written by some Mustafa, some Ahmed. It cannot be like that. It has to be somebody who's Jewish. Understand? That's number one. So these are the things that a person has to know. Number one, he buys a mezuzah. Now, once he buys that mezuzah, the question is, does he have to check it once in a while to see if maybe something went wrong there, or is it now kosher forever until Mashiach comes? Is it kosher like that? That's the question, right? So the truth is, it says in the Masechet Yoma, in the Gemara, the mezuzah must be checked twice every 7 years. This is the halakha. Brought down on Shulchan Aruch as well. What's the reason why mezuzah has to be checked? The truth is that there's also a law about tefillin. The question is, when you buy tefillin, once you ascertain that the tefillin is good, you bought it by a good person, or you checked it, had it checked, now do you have to check it again, the tefillin? So by tefillin, the halacha is, you don't have to check it ever. What's the reason why? Because the tefillin is closed. No air goes in there. What really spoils the parchment is the air. The humidity, the dampness, the all kinds of things like this, moisture, So since the thing is closed up and sewed up, the tefillin, therefore it doesn't need to be checked at all. But the mezuzah, which can be open, right, quite exposed to the air, to the elements. So this is the reason why the Chazal said in Gemara it has to be checked twice every 7 years, because we have to make sure that it didn't rot because of the elements. This is the reason why. Okay? The truth is that if you really look into it a little bit deeper, this issue, nowadays, even though the halakha says in the old days, right, that Shulchan Aruch, it says that you have to check twice every 7 years. Nowadays, we may be able to skip over that, to ignore that. What's the reason why? Because since the whole reason why the tefillin doesn't need to be checked anymore is because it's closed, so therefore the mezuzah now is the same thing. What does that mean? The mezuzot are also closed now. What they do is, actually, the mezuzot, they close it twice. First of all, they put it in like a nylon wrapping, plastic wrapping, clear. They close it up, they tape it with a scotch tape. So that's already pretty much closed. Then they also put a case around it, to make it for decoration, right? That case they put. So it's closed twice. It's closed, first of all, by the nylon, by the plastic, then it's also closed again with the case. So therefore, the tefillin is now the mezuzah in our times is really closed. So according to what the Rambam says, the reason why I have to check the tefillin, we don't have to check the tefillin, is because it's closed. So therefore, according to that, the mezuzot of our times as well, since they're closed, unless you leave it open for some reason, if they're closed, you don't have to check it anymore. So therefore, nowadays, when you go to a store, right, Main Street, whatever it is, or that street, right, whatever it is, casino, right, whatever, today they're closed. The dealer will give it to you and he'll wrap it up for you, nylon, and put it in a case. It's all sealed up hermetically there, right? So therefore, it doesn't really need to be checked anymore. That's the idea, right? Okay, fine. So we got that down more or less. Now the question is what? When you get a mezuzah, the question is where to put the mezuzah. How many mezuzot do you need for the house? The ignorant people. What do they think? The ignorant people. The ignorant people think that you need only one mezuzah for the whole house, right? This is probably something you got from your grandmother. You know what I'm saying? One of your grandmothers. You know what they call it, right? Grandmother stories, right? My grandmother told me I only need one mezuzah. Thank you very much. But your grandmother, was she a rabbi? What she was, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai? Who was she, right? Your grandmother, right? What do you listen to your grandmother for? Go to the rabbi and ask him. What do you have a rabbi for, right? So if you go to the rabbi who knows something about halakha, what will he tell you? He'll tell you that every room requires a mezuzah. This is the way it is, right? The people who don't know nothing, what do? They put only on the outside, just the outside door. The front entrance of the house, they put. This is not the way it is. The truth is, I'll tell you, there are even cases where a person, dafka, should not put it on the outside entrance of the door. There are cases like that, but he needs it in the rest of the house. How is that? How is that a person needs like that? Sometimes a person could have an entrance to his house. Over there, you don't need a mezuzah. Can you guess why? Why wouldn't you need a mezuzah in the front entrance of your house? If you can get this, Jimmy, you're a genius.
I'm thinking about it. Why not? I thought that was the most important.
You need it for 12. You don't need it.
Oh, so you also dwell there, right? You come in the living room, dining room. You dwell there, right? So what's the problem? Why don't you need it? So you know what the case is? I'll tell you an interesting case, right? Funny case. Actually, this was actually a real case
I
also.
don't need one by my apartment.
I'm not telling you it's always like that. But there are some cases where it's like that. Okay, so which case am I talking about? This actually was a real case that I saw in Israel, and with a funny story attached to this, right? Funny attachment to this whole thing, right? What happened was like this, right? First of all, I'll tell you the rule. The rule is that every room which is less than 4 by 4 amot doesn't require mezuzah. We already talked about amot, right, on Tuesday night, because we talked about the height of Moshe Rabbeinu. Remember that? Right. So what did we say? That every amah is half a meter. So what does that mean? If the room is 2 by 2 square meters, it requires a mezuzah. If it's smaller than that, it's 1 by 1, or it's 1 by 1.5. A small room like that, like a courtroom, something like that, right? One of these things does not require mezuzah. This room. So if you happen to have like this, there are some buildings that are structured like this. Also some houses as well. What does that mean? Your front entrance doesn't come into your living room; it comes into a courtroom. Right? So if your front entrance comes into a courtroom, that front entrance doesn't require mezuzah. Why is that? Because it may be too small, that room. You understand? So therefore, you're going to come. Your front entrance has no mezuzah. They're going to think you're a goy, right? They're going to think you're some evangelical guy, right? So one of these people, right? You're going to realize you're a Jew. So you want to hear a funny story? The funny story is like this, right? This is a comedy, I must tell you. What happened was that one of my friends actually had a case like this where his rabbi told him not to put a mezuzah over there in the front entrance. He was living in an apartment building in Jerusalem. So guess what happens, right? The neighbors over there, all religious, religious neighborhood, So they're coming and knocking on his door. They're saying, "Excuse me, sir, where's your mezuzah? You're not a religious Jew. We live in a religious neighborhood over here. This is a religious building, Please, respect the sanctity of our building." They told him like this. So he tells them, he says, "Wait a second, buddy." He says, "My rabbi told me not to put a mezuzah over here." So they told him, they said, "What kind of rabbi is that? We have a reform rabbi? What kind of reform rabbi do they have? What? The fake rabbi?" What is that? One of these guys? So he says, no, my rabbi lives across the street. Go and ask him. So what happens is, right? Now the story intensifies, right? It intensifies. Gets heated up over here. So what they did was they brought one of the rabbis who lived in this building, actually, right? There's one big rabbi who lived in the building, and this rabbi was a dayan, big shot rabbi, with a big name. So he comes knocking on the door, right, of this guy, my friend. He tells him, he says, "Excuse me, son," he says, "But excuse me, but where's your mezuzah? You don't put a mezuzah in your house. What kind of thing is this?" He says, "We have over here some codes, some morals. We have we have a lifestyle that we live over here. Come on, don't be like a wild card. Somebody rebel over here, rebel without a cause. Come on, put a mezuzah on your door. What are you that secular? You don't want to put a mezuzah on your door?" So he tells him, he says, "No, my rabbi told me not to put a mezuzah on the door." So he tells him, he says, "Why? What's the reason?" So he tells this rabbi, he says, "Look, this is a courtroom, this room is too small." Right? So this rabbi, didn't know this halakha so well. He got caught, Not everybody knows these things.
Yeah, but out of distance, they hang up in mezuzah. What's the big deal?
So what's the story? No, he wanted to prove his case. You know what I mean? There are Jews like this, stiff-necked people. Jews are stiff-necked, right? That's what they say about us. We like to prove a point. You know what I mean? To make a point, right? So what happens is like that now they made like a big discussion with this. Now going back letters between this rabbi and his rabbi. Hate letters. Going back. So in the end, right, the truth came out. What was the truth? That he was right, this rabbi. It doesn't require mezuzah over there, right? So you can see from there that there are cases where the front door doesn't require mezuzah. If a person wants to avoid this problem, what should he do, right? That rabbi came up with a nice solution. You know what it was? His rabbi. He told him, he said, "What? If they're giving you a hard time, just put a case without a mezuzah. Put a case. Looks like you have mezuzah over there. So get them off your back."
Yes, anywhere it's a room less than 2 by
2 by 2 meters, right. That's the idea. Right. That's the idea. So so what happens like this, right? When you have a case like that, where do you put the mezuzah then? What you do is that front entrance you don't put a mezuzah, but then once you're going into the living room, that door requires a mezuzah. That's the idea, right? Because that's already the entrance of the living room. That's not the entrance of that courtroom.
Does it have to be a door that swings, or it could be?
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this issue with the door because we have to talk about this whole thing, right? It's a whole discussion, right? All this stuff. So the question is like this, right? What's the most important room for the mezuzah? In other words, if let's say a person has only a limited quantity of mezuzah for the time being, right, until he can go to the store or whatever, where is the most important place to have a mezuzah? In your bedroom, right? Why is that? Because you sleep there. So what happens when you sleep in a place that's considered to be like the real need of the mezuzah, the sleeping? You really dwell in that place. At night, you dwell there. When a person dwells somewhere at night and that's his sleeping quarters, that's the place which really requires the mezuzah. This is the idea, right? Also, when a person sleeps, he requires more protection as well. You know that, right? I don't have to tell you. So that's the idea. So therefore, if a person is limited in quantity, let me ask you another question since we got to this. Let's say a person doesn't have a mezuzah in a certain room, right? Is he allowed to sleep there? Is he allowed to go in there and hang around there? That's the question, right? The truth is that there's no prohibition. Even though there's no mezuzah there, he's allowed to go in there for sure if he needs to get something, right? Or he's allowed to even sleep there if he has no other room to sleep. But if he has another room to sleep, he shouldn't sleep there. He shouldn't do it because he's not protected so well over there. So let me ask you a question, right? What's the reason why we require mezuzah? What's the reason why? Why did Hashem tell us to do this mitzvah? So the Zohar Kadosh tells us a very powerful message about this, right? What does that mean? It tells Zohar Kadosh the reason why we need mezuzah is because of protection. What does that mean? It says Zohar Kadosh, what happens is that when you have a house, you build a house, and you have doorways going from one room to another. Every doorway has, mazikin over there, satanebi, They hang around. They like to hang around over there, in that area. So what happens is that they hang around there. They make their dwelling over there, and whoever comes through there, they try to harm him. Understand? So the only thing that drives these guys out is the mezuzah. And so once you put the mezuzah, they get scared from the name of Hashem. They run. they run for their lives. You understand? So the only way to get rid of these mazikim is to put mezuzot. This is the reason why we do mezuzah. You understand? So a person has to understand, right, that the mezuzah has a very specific purpose as well. Not just for decoration, or some kind of tradition, minhag, not just like that. We're getting protection from this. This is the idea, So a person has to know that, this is not something. It's not a joke. Mezuzah is a very important thing, because the truth is, right? They say that when a building is built, let's say you build a new building, right, a new house, new home. That place usually has mazikim over there, satanabim, demons, whatever. Why is that? Because they like to hang around in deserted places. So until that place is inhabited, they like to hang around there. So in order to get rid of them, what you got to do is put the mezuzah. Once you put the mezuzah, they go off their way, right? They get out of there, and they have no business with you anymore. Understand? That's the idea. So therefore, right, the person has to make sure that every room has a mezuzah. We already talked about this issue about which side to put the mezuzah. Right? I did a lecture Saturday night, Motzi Shabbat, small one, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and we talked about this issue. But just to reiterate what we talked about over there, the point is like this, right? When you're coming from the street, the Gemara says the mezuzah always has to be on your right side. You're coming in from the street, you're right. You're going to a subsequent room, every room, subsequent room, in a room that you go into, it should always be on your right side. As you go in deeper into the home, even the last room, right, all the way down in the aisle, all the way down there in the deep end, that one also has to be on the right side. That's the idea, right? Always on the right side. That's the idea, right? Number one. Number two also, there's the issue of where to place, right, the height. So the famous rule is like this, right? The famous rule is that this, even the amateurs know this, right? They know that you have to divide up the doorposts depending on the height of the doorpost. Each doorpost has a different height, right? Like there's that big door, there's a small door. It's not the same thing, right? These small doors are usually like 2 meters. It's the standard size. Those big ones are 3 or more, right? Like those, right? That's something else. It's a different size altogether. So what you got to do is you got to measure the height of the whole doorpost and put it on the top third of the doorpost. That's what it has to be, right? But dafka, not on the top third, like on the top, but at the bottom of the top third, right? That's the idea. But just to make sure, right? What happens like this? There's a trick over here. The trick is that if a person is too precise with this, he could make a little mistake. If he puts it all the way in the bottom, he could be going too much down. So therefore, you should leave a little slack. A couple, like inch or two. Don't do it exactly 100% exactly. Why? Because if you do a little bit lower, that's it. Your kosher, Mishum is not kosher, right? If you do a little bit too high, it's kosher. If you're a little bit too low, it's not kosher. Understand? So don't put it exactly, the last millimeter, because you could make a mistake. Nobody's perfect, right? Nobody knows how to measure perfectly. So don't go all the way down, until the end. There's no reason to do that. Go give a little slack, right? 1 or 2 inches slack, and then put it like that. Because this way, just in case you miscalculated, you're kosher, right? That's the idea. Okay, that's good.
And if you place it in the wrong place, it's not kosher?
It could be not kosher, right? Depending on, as we said, if you place it too low, it's not kosher. If you place it a little bit too high, it's kosher. Yeah? So now let's talk about the issue of the thickness also, the depths. There's also halakha regarding this, right? What does that mean? The doorpost has a certain thickness. Each one, has its own. Right? That one is very thick, this one is not so thick, right? Each one has its own thickness. So the question is, where should you put, right? On the thickness also. That's the question. So the rule is, right, the best way to do it is to put it on the first tefach. In other words, when you're coming into that room, the first 8 centimeters is the best place to put it. If you put it a little bit deeper than that, it's kosher. But the best place to put is that first 8 centimeters. What's the reason why? They say that if you put it a little bit more out, like that, it protects that area too. You understand? In other words, it gives every area. But if you put it a little bit too deep, that little area that you leave, is not protected. So it's better to put a little bit on the outside, as much as possible, the first 8 centimeters. But if you put a little bit too deep, it's okay. He doesn't have to take it off and do it again. B'diavad, yatzai dechova. That's the idea, right? So this is the way to do it. Everything has its own rule. There's also another thing we discussed in one of the videos, which is, what about now? Let's say, for instance, right? I have a door. And we're going to talk about your question about the door as well, right? I have a doorpost. So you know what I want to do? I want to do like a little bit of a trick over here. What's the trick? I want to put the mezuzah behind the door, not in front of the door. In other words, I have more doorposts also in the back of the door as well. the doorpost is a little bit thick, right? So I want to put it in the back. This way it'll be hidden, flush. Nobody sees the mezuzah. Right? You only see it from the back. You don't see it from the front. This can be actually very useful. You know why? Because there are places which are anti-Semitic, So if they see a mezuzah, they might steal from you. They may damage it, right? Whatever. So places like this in Europe, they had all kinds of problems like this. Pogroms, this, all kinds of things. They were afraid to put mezuzah. So what they did was they used to put it behind the door. Because of this reason, right? So the question is it kosher like that? So we talked about this in the video, but the bottom line, right? The conclusion is that there are some opinions who say it's not kosher to do this way, put it behind the door. But if a person has a need to do it this way, he can do it. You know why? Because most of the poskim, they say it's kosher like that. So therefore, if a person has a need for that, to hide the mezuzah for some reason, he has a certain calculation or whatever, some kind of whatever, right? Issue, whatever it is, right? All kinds of issues like this. So he can put it behind the door. But if not, better to be like all the poskim, to do like all the authorities, and therefore what? To put it in front of the door. But it's better. As we said, right? This is the idea. So this also has its own halakha. Some other interesting things regarding mezuzah also. There are some places where it's a machloket whether this room requires a mezuzah or not. There are many cases like this. What does that mean? There's a machloket between the Rambam and the Rosh, right? The two big authorities. So the question is, what do we do in cases like that? There are many cases like this. Just to give you an example, for instance, let's say you go to there's a room where, as we said, right, you need 2 by 2 meters, right, approximately, right? It's a little bit less than that, like 1.92, something like that, whatever, right? Just to be exact, 2 meters is round off. So what happens like this, right? Let's say you don't have 2 by 2, you have, let's say, 1 by 5. Now what happens is that you don't have the dimensions, but you have the area because it's very long. You understand? So the question is, does it require mezuzah in a case like that, right? So this is the machloket between the Rosh and the Rambam, right? So what does the Shulchan Aruch say? You should put a mezuzah in a case like that because we're not sure if it requires. This is from the Torah. This safek, this doubt. So we say, right, in cases of doubt from the Torah, we go l'chumrah, we go stringent. So therefore, in rooms like this, what we do is we put a mezuzah, but we don't make a bracha. Why is that? Because the bracha, it could be that it's a bracha l'batala, it's unneeded bracha, wasted bracha. So we're very careful about that. We don't want to do wasted bracha. So therefore, what we do in rooms like this, we put the mezuzah without a bracha. This is the idea, right? So a trick that a person can do in order to avoid this problem, you know what it is? If he's putting mezuzot in the whole house, he can make one bracha for the whole house, and this way it'll go also on that doorway as well, and that doorpost as well. So he won't have to make one specifically on that one, because when you do the whole house, you're making one bracha for the whole house. You don't have to make a bracha on each one, because you're doing it like in a row, one after the other, right, without any interruption. Because if you go, like, let's say, to the bank, like all of a sudden, you get into your car, you drove to the bank, you want to pull out some money, right? Once you come back, you need a bracha. That's something else, right? Because you already made like an interruption. But since you're still in the house and you're doing your job,
you can still communicate.
It's one bracha.
You can still talk.
No, we're not talking about talking. We're talking about the issue of the bracha.
Okay, I understand.
You know what I mean?
Because
Yeah.
the bracha is that once you say the bracha, you gotta fulfill that.
Right, that's for sure. Yeah, you gotta start. Right, but let's say in the middle, right? He put a few of them, right? But now he wants to go to the bank all of a sudden, and he comes back. Once he comes back, he needs a new bracha now for the rest of the.
He went to get a drink of water.
That doesn't require. Yeah, doesn't require. Because he's still in the house, right? Whatever. So therefore, it doesn't require. That's the idea. So therefore, in a case like this, right? What should a person do? He cannot really make a bracha. Also, there are many other cases like this. I'll give you another example. For instance, does a garage require mezuzah, right? Or a storage room? You don't live there, but you do storage there. You put some things there, whatever it is, right? You store some stuff over there. You don't live there, but it's like like let's say it's a very large closet, more than 2 by 2 meters. Walk-in closet, or you have, let's say, in your attic, or your basement, room like that, only for storage. You don't do anything there, no activity, just storage, right? So here also it's a machloket between the Rosh and the Rambam. This, right? So therefore we put also in rooms like this we put without a bracha. That's what we do, right? In rooms like this. Also in the garage, the same thing, right? Why? Because the garage is basically a storage room. You're storing your car there. That's what it's for, right? So therefore, what should a person do? I see that I surprised you a little bit with the garage. So what should a person do? Okay, no surprise. Okay, God bless you. Oh, okay. Now you surprised me. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. Okay, okay. So what should a person do? Right, go to the garage. He has that big door, right, that opens, with the automatic, right? He puts the mezuzah over there on the right side on the post over there. That's the idea, and that's it, right? Without a bracha. And also, if there's also an entrance from the garage into the house, he has to put one also over there as well. You know what I mean? You're covered. You're covered. You got all the insurance you need. Okay, very good. That's the way it has to be done, right? As we said, also on the right side, as we said, as you go in on your right, that's the way it has to be done, right? We also discussed in the video that we did this week another thing, which is that this is a very common thing today, by the way, a common problem. The problem is that nowadays they're making doorposts which are made out of metal. In Israel this is very common, and there's no room for the mezuzah there on the doorpost. It's too thin. The door takes up the whole doorpost. You close the door, there's not 1 millimeter of room there. So what are you doing? Where do you put the mezuzah? So the rule is like this, right? The Shulchan Aruch says that the mezuzah has to be put in the airspace of the doorpost, not outside. You know what I mean? In other words, the thickness of the doorpost and the top lintel, it has to be in that airspace. If you put it like, let's say, outside or inside, that's not kosher, this mezuzah. You understand? So the placement is very important. It has to be, so what am I telling you, right? Just to give you an example. Right here, this is kosher, right? But here, this is not kosher. This is not inside the airspace. The doorpost.
Oh, wonderful.
This is the doorpost.
Okay.
Right? This is not the doorpost.
I understand. Where would you put it?
You have to put it, there's no place here. So you have to put it inside, if there's room in there. If you put it here, not kosher. You understand? This is the idea. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's what I'm trying to tell you. This is not kosher at all. So, what do you do in a case like that, right? There are many doorposts where there's actually no place to put the mezuzah, zero room. Over here there probably is. I can, because I know the way it's made, right on the inside. There is. As we said, sometimes you got to put it behind the door. Okay, that's okay. We said. But sometimes there's no room at all. Right. So what do? You know what the people usually do? They put it in the wrong place. As we said, right? So what happens over there, right? There was actually 2 stories that I had, like cases like this, where I told people, that you have to move their mezuzah. So you know what you have to do in a case like that? It's a little bit tricky. Not a big deal. What does the person have to do? He has to make a hole in the doorpost. Bring a handyman, with a saw. They bore a hole inside there. So he puts it inside the hole. Because you're allowed to put the mezuzah in a hole, in the doorpost. That's kosher. You understand? As long as it's within that airspace, under the lintel, right? That airspace, it's kosher. So what you do is you make a little hole there. In Israel, this costs $50 to make this hole. Right? They come with a saw, They make even with metal they can cut. They can cut the metal as well. Yeah, they can cut it nice over there. You put the mezuzah inside. Right? That's what you do. Right? That's the idea. There's also another trick sometimes you can do. You know what it is? That sometimes there's also a little bit of a space there. Like very little space there. A couple of a few centimeters of space, 1 or 2 centimeters. So what you do is put a mezuzah over there without a case. Like very thin, compact. Yeah. And it may fit. So sometimes also this can be done as well. I have some experience with that. Sometimes there's a little bit of room in there. You can get in there. Put it without a case, because really the truth is that according to halakha, you don't need a case with the mezuzah. This is just for decoration. Yeah, I mean, it's more or less it's so for protection, right? But really, the halakha doesn't require that. So therefore, in a place where you cannot put a case, you can put also without a case as well. What do? You wrap it up with nylon, right? Some kind of nylon, plastic, nice and tight. You put it over there. That's kosher, right? No problem, right? That's the idea. So this is the way we do, right? Let's talk about that in the other video. Okay, very good. There's also other types of rooms like this, places where the mezuzah is not really, for sure, required. Safek, doubt. The biggest headache is like what? You know what it is? The mirpeset, right? The balconies that we have. Those balconies, Regal Park, Forest Hills, right? These kind of things. In Israel, there are also many of them like that. So what's the idea? The idea is like this, right? The balcony. There's 2 reasons why the balcony would not require mezuzah. Number 1 is because it has no roof. If it does not have a roof, some have a roof. But if it doesn't have a roof, it's open on the top. So the halakha is that a roof, a balcony which is open, or room also, which has no roof, no ceiling, is not required to have mezuzah. Only a room with the ceiling requires a mezuzah. So therefore, what should a person do in a case like that? First of all, the truth is, there's also another reason why it doesn't require mezuzah. The porch, the balcony. It's because they usually it's too small. They don't have the size, as we said, right? So therefore, we have two reasons why the balcony would not require mezuzah. Number one is because it's too narrow, right? It doesn't have the width, 2 by 2, doesn't have that. You may have 1 by 5, as we said, right? That's kind of configuration. Yeah.
Area has to be 4 meters, or it has to be 2.
That's what we just mentioned, right? What we mentioned is like this, right? The truth is that it should be, ideally, it should be 2 by 2 at least.
Okay.
But if it's 1 by 5 and it has the area, so we put it without a bracha. That's what we said, because it's a safek, right? It's a doubt. We put without a bracha. But over here in the mirpeset, there's 2 doubts. There's not only 1 doubt. One is that it may be right that it's because it's narrow, as we said. That's 1 doubt. Number 2, because it doesn't have a roof, doesn't have a ceiling. So therefore, most of the balconies don't require mezuzah because of this combination of 2 things that we just talked about. You understand? So the truth is that there are some that do. You know why? Because there are many balconies that are covered, and they also have quite a big size. So therefore, if a person wants to, if he sees that his balcony is covered, number one, and also the size is quite large, on the larger side, even if it just has the area, as we said, right, without having the 2 by 2. So what should you do? You should put without a bracha as well. That's the idea, right? And also the mirpeset, that's how we call it in Hebrew, right? Mirpeset, balcony, right? Over there we put without a bracha. That's the idea. So what do we do? As we said, if we're making the whole house, we'll make a bracha on one for everything. We'll cover that too. That's the idea, right? But if there's no, you're not doing the whole house, just doing the mirpeset, you're just doing the balcony. In a case like that, without a bracha. Also, another question on the balcony, right? One of the Gabbaim also asked me over here about this, which is what side do you put it, right? On the right side when you're going out, or when you're coming in? How does that work, right? So the truth is, it's a big machloket, this thing, right? Between the poskim, huge machloket. Then on the one side there's Bet Meir and there's Chazon Ish. They say that you put it on your left side when you're going out. You know why? Because the balcony is not really considered to be a room. It's more like an entrance into the house. It's not a significant room. So therefore they say that's why it has to be coming in. When you're coming into the house, it should be on your right.
That's the porch.
Right. Now, right from the balcony. Right, that's the idea, from balcony. Now, there's also another opinion, which is the majority, the Bet Yosef and many other poskim also agree with them. They say no, the balcony should also have the same thing. What does that mean? When you're going out to the balcony, it should be on the right side. So the truth is that my rabbi, he writes in the Yebi Omer, Chelik Dalet, he says over there that the proper thing to do is to do on the right side when you're going out into the balcony. Why is that? Because the majority of the poskim say like that. The vast majority of poskim say that it should be like that on that side. So therefore, a person should put it on that side. That's what he should do, as we said, but without a bracha. So this is the idea of the porch, right? The mirpeset.
Even if you're opening the door from a certain side, that still belongs on the right side.
Oh, that's a good question. You see, I'm going to talk about this since he mentioned this, because there are certain cases where this makes a big difference. What does that mean? The hinges of the door as well. Which side of the hinges, right? I'm going to talk to you about that.
Not the knob.
Right.
The hinges.
Right, not the knob. Yeah, the hinges, because the hinges are holding the door, right?
Yeah.
They're the one holding up the door. So now, what's the story? The story is like this, right? That there are certain cases, as we said. Also, another thing, which is that a person may have many entrances into the house. Side entrance, front entrance, back entrance. When a person has a private home, that's the way it is, right? Here. So the question is, what do you do there? Does each one require mezuzah? And also, which side? Which one is the real entrance of the house? Right? So the Gemara says over there, Masechet Menachot, the halacha is like this, right? Every entrance requires its own mezuzah on the right side when you're coming in. Each time you're coming in on your right side, it has to have a mezuzah. Because each one of them is an entrance. You also go out from there as well. It's also an exit. But since it serves both purposes, exit and entrance as well, even though most of the time you don't go from there, most of the time you go to the front entrance, let's say, right? But nevertheless, since it does serve a purpose like that, therefore each one requires its own mezuzah, coming in from the outside. That's the idea, right? Coming in from the outside. That's the idea. So now, okay, that's very simple. But what about the case where you have like this, right? The tricky case like this. Let's say you have several entrances into the house, right? Here. Okay, so we know now what to do. But the question is, what about when you have a middle room in the house and there's entrances coming from different sides into this room? So now in that room, how do I do the mezuzot? Which one is the entrance? Which one is the exit? I can do it either way. This is the exit. This is the entrance. This is the entrance. This is the exit. How do I know which one is the entrance? How do I know? How do I figure this out? So here, what David mentioned comes into play. What does that mean? Gemara says, when you're not sure which one is the exit, which one is the entrance, because it's coming from different angles, here, you don't know which one. This room is like in the middle, it's stuck in the middle of all these entrances, and it has an entrance coming from different angles. So what do you do over there? Over there, you put it where the hinges are, on the side of the hinges of the door. That's where you put the mezuzah, because we're not sure what to do over there. This is the interesting case, right? What does that mean, double
Whatever
door?
you're saying, I'm trying to imagine.
What does that mean, double door?
2 doors. They go like this.
Right, that's not really so important, whether it's a double or a single.
They have both hinges. Both doors have hinges.
Oh.
I have that also.
Oh, that's a very good
I have it
question.
on the right hand side.
Oh,
Wow.
wow! You got me over there. This is a shocker. What you got?
So
You
if
told me,
I'm
man.
entering my apartment, like that mezuzah is set up,
Yeah.
and that doorknob is set up, it's okay.
I'm sorry. What's that again?
If I'm entering my apartment,
So it should be on your right. When you're coming in, it should be on the right of your entrance. As you're coming into the apartment, on the right side. That's the idea.
the right side.
Yeah, on your right.
It doesn't matter where the knob is.
No. There's only one entrance.
My answer would be up.
Oh, that's why you're here. That's why I brought you here. I told you, don't listen to the grandmothers, listen to the rabbis. That's what I told you in the beginning.
It doesn't matter how you open up the door to get into your
In this
apartment.
case, it doesn't matter.
has
It only
to be-
matters which case when there's 2 entrances coming from different sides. Right? There was one friend of mine who I speak to, and she asked me. She asked me a question. No, we'll fix it up, David. Don't worry about it. We'll fix it up. Okay, so now the interesting things like this, right? As we said. By the way, you should know, over here in the shul, I changed these mezuzot. When I came about 2 years ago, I told Yasha, the mezuzah was on the wrong side over here. What does that mean? You see how it's on the right side of coming in?
Yeah, it has to go.
It's an entrance. It was on the left side. Also on the outside door. I told Yasha, change it now. He changed it. Oh, Baruch Hashem. Also this one, I changed also this one. Yeah.
I can take it off and put it back without a prayer.
You need a blessing. You have to make a blessing. What's a blessing you have to make from mezuzah? Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav likvua mezuzah. This is the blessing for the mezuzah.
Okay.
It's in the Siddur. It's also on your phone. You can find your phone. Yeah, no problem. No problem. Everything's on the phone today.
But this is the entrance. Shouldn't be here.
Oh, this is a very good question. You see what he's asking? Oh man, you got me there. You got me already twice today. Okay, so what's the story? The story is like this, right? That this room inside is what? It's a stairway.
Oh, yeah.
It's a stairway. It's not, you right? So stairway is considered to be like
Connection.
not the main room. This is the main room where we dwell. The stairway is like just serving that room. There's also another thing, which is that there's also another entrance in the bottom. So there's 2 entrances coming in here. Understand? This is the trick
So
over
in
here.
other words, you look at it like it's an entrance from outside to the shul.
Right, but not only because there's another entrance from the street, but because of the stairway as well. The stairway is like
the entrance
is a
to the
minor.
gate.
It's right. It's a minor room. This is a major room. It's like more. This was not. It's not an easy decision to make. But regarding what you asked about, by the way, this is a very very good question. That you have 2 doors. The hinges are from both sides. So what do you do over there? So you know what the answer is?
Don't tell me you need 2 mezuzah.
No, you do not need 2 mezuzah. By the way, you should know there are some people, because of all these doubts that we just mentioned, these issues. You know what they do? They say, "Let me put on both sides. I'm not sure which side, so I'll put on both sides. I'm not a poor guy, right? I can afford to put 2 mezuzot." So what's the answer? The answer is no. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to put 2 mezuzot in one doorway. You know why? Because there's a prohibition of Baal Tosif. You know what's Baal Tosif? Don't add to the mitzvot. Hashem told you to put one mezuzah. You're putting 2? You're not allowed to add to the mitzvot. Hashem told you to put 1. Don't put 2. That's also a prohibition about that. You understand? So therefore, a person is not allowed to put 2 mezuzot on one doorway. Not allowed to do that. So therefore, what should you do? We bring a rabbi who knows what he's talking about in these things. He's going to tell him which side has to go on. It has to be decided. This thing. Not so clear, right? One of the. So in your case, what we do when you have 2 sides, hinges on both sides, what we would do is we would decide 2 things. Number one, we would have to look at let's say which room is more important, the main room. So what we would do is that we would put it as an entrance into the main room there. You understand? On the right side of the entrance of the main room. Right. The more, you know what I mean? That would be that's a ticket. That's a ticket. Okay? So one of my friends, by the way, asked me regarding this. She said, I heard from some rabbis that when you put mezuzot in your house, you have to bring a rabbi over, And it's not because the rabbi has to bless you. That's not the issue. Right? People think when the rabbi comes over, he has to bless you. That's also good, but that's not the reason why he's coming. And he's not coming to get a cup of coffee either. That's not the reason why he's coming. Right? To get some snacks, right? Whatever, some candies. The reason he's coming is to tell you how to do the mezuzot or things like this. So what should a person do? So she asked me, do you have to really have a rabbi coming over and telling me what to do? So I said, you know what? Really, the truth is that's the proper thing to do, because there are so many so many issues with mezuzah. You never know how to do these things. If you don't learn the halachot, how is he going to teach you how to do these things? So you should bring a rabbi who knows how to do this, knows halakha. He'll tell you exactly where to put everything, in the right place. At least, by the way, if you don't want to do this, let's say you don't have coffee, you don't have to serve him, whatever, you don't have any pizza, So what should you do? Send him some pictures, right? Text him pictures, and by the pictures, he'll tell you where to put them. This is also a very simple way to do it. Today, Baruch Hashem, we have technology, You don't have to bring the rabbi over anymore. Just show him the pictures. He'll tell you, here. He'll tell you everything, right? Take some pictures. Everything is for free. We don't pay for that anymore, right? Nothing. So Baruch Hashem, everything is nice and good. That's the way to do it, you understand? So a person should bring a rabbi over. There's also another interesting case, which is, this is what you mentioned in the beginning, which is sometimes we have a doorway, we have a doorpost, but we don't have a door. This happens very often, right? There's no door there. Does that require mezuzah? So this is also machlokat between the Rosh and the Rambam. Same thing, right? There's many machlokat between the Rosh and the Rambam. So therefore we put without a bracha also in places like this. But when is that? When there's 3 doorposts. What does that mean? There has to be 2 on the side and 1 on the top.
Okay.
If you have 3, troika, you have this way like this, that requires mezuzah. What about if I have 2 but not on the top? This does not require mezuzah. Understand? It has to have 3. What does that mean? There has to be something sticking out of the roof. Not just the roof itself, the ceiling itself. That's not called a doorpost. It's a ceiling, right? Some kind of beam, some kind of wall there coming down, or something, whatever, some kind of frame. All these kinds of things, right? If you have something like that, so what you do in a place like this where there's no door, so you put it you put it without a bracha. This is the idea, right? There's also another case which works like that, which is that one. Let's say a person has he has 2 doorposts, but not 3. What does that mean? He has 1 on the top, and he has only 1 on the side, not 2. So what's the rule? The rule is that if it's on the right side, he should put a mezuzah without a bracha. Without a bracha. It's also a doubt. It's also thick, right? Another one. Without a bracha, right? Exactly. That's it. But if you know for sure, though, that it doesn't require mezuzah there, better not to put a mezuzah at all. Put just a case maybe to make people think that you have mezuzah there. If you really need that, right? If you don't want to get into a fight with anybody, right? Whatever. Some rabbi will come, like that, right? And give you a hard time. Some nosy rabbis will come over there, right? And give you a hard time over there. If that's the case, okay. Or some nosy neighbors will come, right? Give you a hard time. You can do that. But the truth is, right? There are place where doesn't require mezuzah. A person really should not put a mezuzah. In other words, what doesn't require mezuzah? Point to everybody. So. You know what we say about that, right? There's a Gemara in the Yerushalmi. The Gemara says, "Kol hapatur midavar ve'oseu nikra hediot." You know what that means? A person who's exempt from something, and he still does it because he thinks, I'm going to be more religious than everybody. I'm exempt, but I'll do it anyway. It's called hediot. You know what's hediot? A person who's like a commoner, like a simple person, a farmer, idiot, like a little bit of a dull-witted person. If the Torah exempted you, why are you doing it? For what? Who are you trying to impress? What are you trying to do over here? You know what I mean? It's the idea. So a person who's wise, always, you should know that he doesn't do things which he's not required to do. You're just wasting time. You're wasting energy. You're wasting your resources for that. You're wasting your brain power, your body power, your energy. For what? What do you need these things for? The famous things like this, right? Which is brought down in the Gemara, that a person, on Sukkot, it's raining out there, or it's freezing out there, bitter cold. He goes out there and he sleeps there, he eats there in the rain while his soup is be turning into a pool, a swimming pool. What are you doing over there? Hashem told you, get out, what are you staying there for? Hediot, idiotichar, what kind of person are you, There are some people who like to do this, like to be stubborn, I'll do it anyway, hard-headed people, stiff-necked, as we said, right? Stiff-necked, you know what I mean? They like to do it, they can't get away from it. That's not the way that's not the way of the Chachamim. The way of the Chachamim is, when you're exempt, you're exempt. If there's a machloket, okay, you can do it, if you want to go according to all opinions, but without a bracha, as we said, right? As we said. No bracha over there, that's the idea, right? Same thing goes with the sukkah, by the way. If a person is doing something in the sukkah, where he's exempt over there, what does that mean? Let's say it's very cold. It's pretty cold there. But he still wants to eat there anyway. He wants to be a hero, right? It's cold, so he puts on a sweater. He puts on some layers, right? Some coat, some down coat, whatever. He goes out there. He wants to eat over there. So he cannot make a blessing now. Why? Because he really, according to halakha, is exempt from being the sukkah. So if you make a blessing, you're making a blessing in vain. You know what I mean? This is the same idea. So a person has to understand these things. Everything has its proper equation.
They needed the mezuzah for the sukkah also.
No, what's the reason why? By the way, it's a good question when you're asking. Because temporary, right, exactly. Whatever is temporary doesn't require mezuzah. Well, since you mentioned that, by the way, there's also another issue, which is what about the elevator? Does the elevator require mezuzah? Right? The truth is, you go to in Israel to the religious neighborhoods, they put mezuzot over in the elevator. They put mezuzot, right? But the truth is, according to there is a yeah, every floor. Can you imagine? They don't care, So what's the halakha? The halakha is it doesn't require mezuzah. What's the reason why? Because there are some poskim who say, since it's first of all, number one, they're usually very small, so they don't have the size usually. But even if it doesn't have the size, let's say, but it's temporary. What does that mean? Just go in there for 2 minutes, and you go out. So it's not really called a dwelling place. It's just like you're passing, through there. You know what I mean? It's not really somewhere where you dwell there. What do you do over there? You're just playing with your nose. What are you doing over there? There's nothing you do over there. So therefore, it's not really. It's also moving. It's not stationary. It's a moving kind of thing. So therefore, really, the truth is, according to halakha, mezuzah, the elevator does not require mezuzah. But there are some people who are machmir. God bless them. If they want to be machmir or whatever. The truth is, if the elevator is small also as well, doesn't have 2 by 2. So then for sure, there's nothing to talk about, right? You're wasting your resources. You're wasting your time doing that. Such a thing like that, right? That's the idea. So a person has to know also here, writing all these things, right? So as we said, right, the anything which is like temporary like that does not require mezuzah. There's also another thing I want to finish with this, right? Which is also very important regarding places, buildings which are not houses, basically. Like businesses, stores, offices, schools, yeshivot, also synagogues. Do they require mezuzah, these places? Right. So the truth is that these places are not called dwelling places. You don't dwell there. You just like work there, or you like pray there for a little while and you leave. You know what dwelling means? Dwelling means you're there at night. Like on your lazy couch, with your feet up like this, right? Remote control. Like this is what it means to dwell. You're dwelling there. You do something, some activity there, some kind of activity. What activity are you doing, right? In these places. This is the reason why, right? They say that regarding places like this, where there's no activity going on there, right? But so what happens like this? Now the truth is, it says the Shulchan Aruch regarding this, that stores do not require mezuzah. Stores, duchanebi, like magazebi. But the truth is, and nowadays we do put mezuzah on the stores. You know why? Because Shulchan Aruch was talking about a different kind of a store. It was talking it was talking about a store where you pack it up and you leave. Like you close it. Duchan, like it's collapsible. You collapse the store, and you just fold it up and go home. So this is like temporary, as we said. You understand? But nowadays, since the buildings are more, they're permanent. And you don't collapse these things. And sometimes, by the way, also you're there in the evening as well. What does that mean? Your store is open also in the evening. And you're hanging around, talking on your phone, drinking coffee. It's more like today. These places are more like relaxed, dwelling places as well. Not just a place for commerce. It's also a place for socializing a little bit. You eat also there. You know what I mean? The lunch, this, from the local, restaurant, you order some things. You know how it is, right? Today, so therefore, places like this today, nowadays, the custom is to put mezuzot over there, places like this. We put mezuzot over there, but we put that without a bracha. Because it's a doubt, it's still not so sure, 100%. That it requires mezuzah. Why? Because it's not really 100% for dwelling, this place. There's more business, it's more like, for other things. Also regarding the yeshivot as well, or, things like this, places like this, or a synagogue. Does a synagogue require mezuzah? According to halakha, does not require mezuzah. But the custom is to put mezuzot on synagogue. And also in yeshivot as well. We put mezuzot. What's the reason why we put? Because the truth is, nowadays, what they do is, in the synagogue, in the old days, the synagogue served a different purpose than it does today. What does that mean? In those days, the synagogue was outside the city. It was in the field somewhere. They used to go out. And the only thing they did over there was pray. Once they would finish the prayers, they would close up and leave. That's it, done. So nobody was sitting there at night, hanging around there, studying Torah, doing some lectures like we do. No, there was no activity like that over there. So therefore, in a case like that, but nowadays what happens is that the synagogue is also a place for learning as well. We study there, we socialize, right? We talk about all kinds of social, these guys, what they talk about, right? All these things, right? Politics, all kinds of stuff. We sit there, we eat, we drink, we have toaster ovens, we have refrigerators, right? We dwell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So therefore, nowadays the truth is that these kinds of places where there's activity, especially if there's activity going on at night as well, like we have here activity going on at night. Right now we're here at night. We're dwelling here, we're eating here, we're drinking here, right? So therefore, the truth is, in a case like that, a person should put a mezuzah in places like this as well. Whether it's a synagogue or yeshiva, there's activity going on at night over there, in places like this. Nowadays, things have changed. The truth is, says Maran Rabbi in his book Chalichot Olam, in cases like this where there's activity going on at night as well in these places, you're allowed to even make a bracha over there. You don't have to make a blessing. You know why? Because the blessing goes on what? The fact that you're dwelling there at night. This is the idea. So therefore, nowadays, a person has what to rely on if he wants to make a blessing even in places like this. So he's allowed to, right, to make a bracha. So why is that? Because we dwell there. That's the idea, right? Just like we're doing right now. That's the idea. Okay, Rabbi, so I guess we'll stop here. I don't want to keep you here too long. Next time, B'ezras Hashem, next week. See you next week. I wish you blessings, happiness, and wealth, and health. And you should be blessed in your homes, blessed in your outside, blessed in your blessed in the field, blessed at home, blessed in the garage. You should be blessed in the office, blessed in the elevator as well. You should be blessed everywhere. Hashem should give you plenty and good. Shefa, ruchani v'gashmi. Amen, amen. Thanks for coming. God bless.
These are the favorites. So you want to add